Welcome, everybody, to the Google Developer Student Club very first workshop of this year. So, first of all, I want to apologize for the headphone users. Did not mean to break y'all's eardrums, but let me share my screen. There you go. So, what's going on, everyone? I'm so happy to have y'all here today and here to kick off our first series of the year. In this series, you'll learn how to code your own portfolio website using HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. And if you're serious about getting into a big software company, being capable of building a website is a great skill to show off to your employers. And it'll even give you a great place to post your Google Developer certifications that will give you guys a chance to earn in the future. And on that note, if you guys would like to stay caught up with all of our activities, workshops, event recordings, and more, just check out our link tree, which I will make sure to throw in the chat right now for everyone. There you go. But besides the point, in this workshop today, we're going to learn HTML, CSS, and JS from the ground up. So don't worry about following along and copying our code line by line. It'll be more important for you guys to just keep a straight focus on absorbing all the material. So before we get started on our content, let's introduce our speakers. And if you don't already know me, my name is Ethan. I'm a tech lead with the UCF Google Developer Student Club. There's something you should know about me is that I love game development and programming. So if you want to be able to make a super simple game like Flappy Bird, Snake, or the Chrome dinosaur game on a web browser in a potential future workshop, then make sure to pay extra close attention today. But with us is our second speaker.
Hello, everyone. My name is Alex. I'm one of the tech leads at Google Developer Student Club. So I'm passionate about building web and mobile applications. And today I'm going to be helping with coding live. So I hope you guys enjoy this first workshop.
And with us, we also have Ryan, AKA the tech lead of all tech leads, and also Max, who's on the come up of becoming the next big deal. And they'll be our chat moderators today. So they'll answer any questions you guys may have related to the content or anything else you'd like to know. So don't be afraid to pop any questions in the chat because they'll be there to answer them. So before we move forward, I want to give a quick overview of what the Google Developer Student Club is about. So this club, or also known as GDSC, which is our abbreviation, is a student-run committee that's supported and recognized by actual Google developers, and they empower students like us through programs like these. Our goal for GDSCs is to help students bridge the gap between theory and practice. But what's that even mean? So in our classes, we learn a lot of theory or concepts, but oftentimes we don't even apply these to real world problems. And that's exactly what we're here for. So by coming to these events, you'll learn about technologies and platforms that you can leverage in your own endeavors. And remember, it's a student-run community, and we want you to reach out and ask any questions or help if you get stuck. This way, we meet new people and build projects together. That's our goal here in our GDSC, and we hope you enjoyed today's event. So, what I want to do first is I want to get a poll and just a broad scope of the level of experience everyone has. So on the Zoom screen, we'll post a poll and you'll be able to choose one of three options between I've never written a line of HTML code before, I have some experience with programming websites, or I'm very familiar with web development. So we'll take a moment, give everyone a chance to cast their answer. I like it, I like it. Quite a few beginners, some people familiar. There we go. Nice. So for those who have never written a line before, you guys are in the perfect place because today we're going to start from the ground up. So for those who do have some experience or are fairly familiar with this content, This will serve as a good review for our upcoming future workshops. And before we hop right into this, I'm also going to throw some reference resources in the chat. So if at any point you get lost while we review HTML and CSS, then these cheat sheets that I got will be a good place to review. So let's send those in now. Nice. So without further ado, let's begin with a high-level overview. So there's two common ways to create a website. It's either through HTML, CSS, and JavaScript, or through a content management system like Wix, WordPress, and Squarespace, where you as a developer can organize all the content on the page without writing a line of code. Now, why should we learn these languages when we have these easy to use sites? Well, that's like asking, why do we need chefs and cooks when you can buy instant ramen from the grocery store? These platforms don't give us developers complete control, and more specifically, they're for websites only, not web applications. And the difference between the two is that a website provides visual and text content, which users can view and read, but not affect its functioning. Web applications, on the other hand, can allow users to affect its function. And they offer much more interactivity than websites, which is why learning these languages is so beneficial and why we'll cover them today, and also show off how each of these languages can all work together in the same environment. So first things first, let me take this out of the screen. First things first, what do we need to know? Well, the way I see it is that this is the Krabby Patty of front-end website development. The three-way team that complements each other, and what one covers makes up for what another one is weak in. And HTML is the central foundation of it all. So first and foremost, what is HTML exactly? Well, HTML stands for Hypertext Markup Language. It uses markup to describe the structure of web pages and is the very foundation for every single web page on the internet. It controls where your web title is placed, your headers, your paragraphs, and any text at all. And it's important to note that browsers like Google Chrome, Safari, Firefox, Edge, and others are specifically meant to read HTML documents and display them for us. But enough chit chat. Let's see how it works. So Alex, you can share your screen for us really quick. We can dive right into this. Nice. So what we'll use to demonstrate HTML code is a website called W3 Schools, which lets us see live updates of our quote unquote web page, and is an amazing place to learn and practice coding in HTML and CSS. And I will link this in the chat as well for those who would like to get more hands-on experience after this workshop. And there we go. On the left side of the screen, you'll see the basic template of an HTML document. And on the right side, you'll see the text it displays. It doesn't look like your normal code that you may be used to, and that's because it's a markup language, not a programming language. It's not object-oriented like some of us are used to. And the structure of HTML is built by elements, represented by what are known as tags. And a tag is a reference word surrounded by a greater than and less than sign. And this is a very common term you'll hear when working with this language. So let's take a look at this code line by line. First, you have the doc type, which defines the document file and tells your source code editor that you're working with HTML. Underneath, we have the root element, the HTML tag, which is the root element of any HTML page, and it always embodies everything in our code. Also notice that at the bottom of our document, we have what's called the closing tag of the element, which also says HTML, but it's used with a / to mark it as a closing tag. This is similar to the concept of a semicolon in programming, or to put it simply, a period in a sentence. You'll almost always see each element we call an HTML with an opening and closing tag. Now, if we look in the next line, we have a head tag where you can see it embodies the title tag. Don't get confused. These tags are not talking about the header and title located directly on the web page. And we'll go more in depth of why we use this header and what it does later on. And if we, in our title tag, we set the title of the document, which normally is displayed on the browser tab for the page. So for example, if you look at the top of the web page, you'll see that the tab says Try Editor v3.7. This is the title. So now if we go a few lines lower in our HTML code, you'll see the body tag. The body tag of our HTML document is the juicy part, where a majority of our content is displayed. And again, notice that all of our content that's being displayed is contained within an opening and closing tag. Now, inside the body, we have a header represented by the term H1, which is the largest type of header. This is the top title displayed directly on the page. And you can also reference the tags H2, H3, and so on, which continues to decrease in size, going up in number. So here, what we'll do is copy and paste our H1 tag a few times. And then we'll change the number to show off what we mean. Now, if we run our code, we can see that it decreases in size. So we can also change the text of our header by simply adjusting the text that's located between the H1 opening and closing tag. So we'll replace the text with the word welcome. Run our code, awesome. And then we have the P tag right below it that we call the paragraph tag, the main text which you can choose to display your article content. And then we finish the doc with a closing body tag and a closing HTML tag. So before we move on, let me clarify that learning languages and their syntax is a lot to remember in one day. So there's a lot of different tags that are involved in HTML, but don't get overwhelmed because you don't need to memorize the exact syntax of everything. No matter how advanced you get, you'll always be checking documentation or code examples online while you develop your own web design. But with that said, I want to ask, do we have any questions about HTML and syntax so far? I'll give you guys a moment to build up the courage if you want to ask any questions. It looks like we're good. Awesome. So now that we've grown some familiarity with HTML, we can move on with the presentation once again. So I'll share my screen once again. All right. Now to better visualize the layout of HTML, here's a high-level overview of what each HTML document will look like. As you've seen before, there is the document type located at the top, the HTML tag that embodies all other tags, our header, our body, and the contents of the body, as well as the closing tags. But now let's answer the next big question. Where can we even start writing our code? Well, there's one thing you guys should know is that you're capable of creating and writing your own HTML code in any sort of prehistoric text editor, and then simply changing the format of your code by clicking File, Save As, HTML File. And just like that, you'll be able to view the HTML page in a web browser. But it's way more practical and common to use a source code editor, such as Visual Studio Code. So Alex, help us out real quick. How do we download this source code editor?
Yeah, so the first step to download Visual Studio Code will be going to your web browser and look for Visual Studio Code. Now keep in mind that if you only look for Visual Studio, you're gonna find this other code editor called Microsoft Visual Studio, but this is not the one you have to download. So make sure you type Visual Studio Code. Now the next step is to click on download. And depending on what operating system you're working on, it can be Linux, like with Debian or Ubuntu, it can be Mac OS, or it can be Windows. You can just choose the version that corresponds to your operating system. And the download will take like around 2 minutes. So it's pretty fast to download and you shouldn't have any issues.
Nice. Now I'll also send a link to VS Code in the chat for you guys. If you guys would like to go check that out. Now, so Alex, what we're going to do is let's open up Visual Studio Code. So since Alex already has it downloaded for us, we'll pop it up on our screen. And also, if you guys do open up Visual Studio Code for your first time, there will be a chance that this welcome screen does not pop up. So to be able to make this appear, all you have to do is go to the top panel, click on Help, and the Get Started tab. So as soon as you click on that, you should be able to see what we see right now. So now what we're going to do first is we're going to open up a folder to store our website files and all other future files inside. So for simplicity's sake, we'll make a new folder on our desktop, name it My First Website. Nice. Now if we go back to Visual Studio, we can click on Open Folder. Look for the file we just created, the folder. And as soon as we open it up, we should be, there we go. Now in Visual Studio, you'll see in the Explorer panel, the top left side of the screen, the title of our folder is now there, which means we can now create our first file. So by right-clicking in the folder menu, we can create a new file, which is automatically placed in our folder, and we'll call it index, which is the standard naming convention for HTML files. And right after the word index, we'll follow the extension .html, which tells VS Code what kind of file we're saving our document as. And it's this file which will hold all the contents of our web page. So now, before we hop straight into programming for y'all, let's try to test out our newfound knowledge. So we'll post another poll on the screen, and you guys can choose what the best answer is for what you think goes into our first line of code that tells our program we are going to be using HTML. Give you guys a moment to answer that. Clearly have a few clowns in this lobby. There we go. Still waiting on a few more people. I'm gonna give a countdown of 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1. All right, nice. Most of you guys got it. And matter of fact, answer was not doc type your mom. So now, Alex, let's go ahead and start writing the rest of our HTML template. So as we do with every HTML file, we will do, there we go, doc type HTML. And right below that, we'll embody the rest of our code with the HTML tag. Nice. Now we can create our header tags. And below that will be our body tags.
If you need to take a second for if your VS Code is still downloading, just send us a message in the chat, because if we need to wait for some people, we can definitely take a break here and then keep on running through. So if you're still waiting for your VS Code to download and getting to the setup step, just send something in the chat right now.
While we wait for those people, I can share the results of our last poll.
And also, Ethan, I'm not able to see the polls on your screen, but I think that I have it so it's sharing to everyone. So hopefully we're good.
Oh, all right.
Yeah, so if
Nice.
someone in the chat can confirm that they're also able to see the full results, that would be great. Thanks, Melvin.
Yeah, Hannah, whenever you think you were good to keep going, just let me know.
Okay. So 6:51, if someone still needs a little bit of extra time to get VS Code downloaded, just pop something in the chat. Otherwise, we can go ahead. And also you can get caught up on this afterwards. Okay, you do. Let's wait till 6:53 and then go ahead then. And we'll also make sure, we'll double check then to see if everyone still needs a little bit of extra time. And by the way, thank you for letting us know in the chat. We want to make sure everyone's able to catch up and stay together on this. And while we're waiting for 6:53, you can check out our site on Bevy, where we post all of our events, and also our link tree, which was shared earlier in the chat, so you guys can stay up to date with us on future events. So it's 6:53. So if we want to go ahead, can definitely.
Sure.
Do we want to check one more time, or do we want to just keep on cruising?
Check to see if anyone needs to catch up.
So if you're still waiting for VS Code to download, send something in the chat. We can wait like 1 more minute. Okay. So it looks like everyone is pretty much good. So proceed.
All right, perfect. So next up, what we'll do is we'll make a header inside our body tag, an H1 header to be specific, and we'll type in GDSC club in between there. And then right after that, we'll make our paragraph tag, and we'll type in welcome to the first workshop. Awesome. Now, let's have another quick poll. So tell us, guys, we're gonna have a yes or no question on the screen. So if you think that everything looks like it's in correct order, go ahead and say yes. But if you believe something is missing, go ahead and say no.
Alex, could you zoom in a tiny bit on the text, by the way?
I'm trying to see where I think it was on view. No.
All right, everyone's votes are in. And for those of you, there's many of you will probably realize that we must not forget our slashes in our closing tags. So let's go ahead and fix that up real quick. Such as our HTML tag, body tag, and so forth. Now is go time. Let's go ahead and open up our page in our browser and check out what we made. So to do this, we can locate our HTML file in our folder on the desktop and open it with Chrome, Safari, Firefox, or any other browser that you guys work with. Cool. Now we can see our text, but if you look at the browser tab at the top, you'll notice that it's just called index.html, the name of our HTML file. So if you remember, we can change this using the title tag we mentioned earlier. So let's go back into VS Code real quick and adjust this. So right under the head tag, we can then place our title tag. And in this example, we'll call our tab GDSE. There we go. Now we have to save it and click refresh. And if you look at the tab at the top once more, you can see it change. So before we move on to the next big topic, there's an extension called Live Server that I want to introduce to you guys to make all of our lives easier. So if you notice that process we just went through of saving the file and then refreshing the page, this can get really tedious really fast. So what we'll do is we're gonna cut that step out and we're gonna install an extension that'll have our web page display live updates whenever we simply save our HTML file. So to do this, we first need to navigate to extensions, which is located in the left panel of VS Code. It is the second from the bottom. And once you click on it, you should see a search bar. And inside that search bar, we can type in live server. Now, since Alex already has live server downloaded, he won't be able to download it again, but this is super easy to install. And it's only a click of a button and it'll automatically apply to any VS Code document that you work in. So if we go back to our HTML code, we can right click first we can exit out of our GDSE website that we previously made and right click on our HTML file this time. And once we right click on the bottom of that list of options, something new will pop up and it'll now say open with live server. So we're gonna click on that, open it up once again. So let's test out and see how this works. So now what we'll do is let's change the header and make it say, let's spell out Google Developer Student Club.
And it looks like the control and the equal sign increases the font if we want to do that.
And
Control and what?
Control and equals.
Mm-hmm. And the plus sign increases if I type. Oh.
For me, it was control and equals, not control and plus. Oh, perfect. You got it.
Is it visible now?
There we go.
Nice.
Now, with that simple change we made, if you guys saw it, as soon as Alex saved the document and clicked Control S, the update automatically happened on the screen. So to display that one more time in case you missed it, Alex, delete the word club for us for a second. Click Control S, and right away you see it updates. So now we'll put the word club back. Control S again, nice. Now, it's about that time to add a little bit of spice to our basic code. So Alex, thanks for sharing your screen for us. You can now hop back into the presentation for a moment and we'll tackle the next big question. So the next big question is, what is CSS? So CSS stands for Cascading Style Sheets and is used for describing the presentation of a document written inside HTML. In other words, it tells the browser how to style each element with colors, fonts, spacing, sizing, and more. Here, we have a skeleton of what CSS will look like in our code. The body text is where we will tell our program which header, paragraph, or section of text we want to customize. So in this case, we'd replace the word body with other tags like H1 or P, or whichever text we want to customize specifically. Then below, we have what's called the property of the text. So if we want to change the size, color, or alignment, we can put it within these braces. So to visualize this a little bit better, Alex, the local legend, can you pull up your code for us real quick one more time? Thank you, thank you. Let me pull up your screen. And
Is it showing though?
one sec, I'm just about to get it on my monitor. All right, I got it. Nice. All right, so first thing we're going to do is spice up our webpage by changing the background color. So to do that, what we're first going to do is below, or actually, my fault, inside our header, we're going to type in style, or we're going to create a style tag. And style opening and closing tag. And we're going to call our body tag and add braces right after it. Just like that. Then we'll call one of the many property functions, which is called background color, followed by a colon. And as you can see, with Visual Studio Code, it often automatically fills in whatever word you're typing, which is super helpful for us. But after the colon, there are three main ways that we can change this color. So the first basic way is by simply typing in the color you want. So as soon as we type in a color, we can look for it in a presented drop-down menu. So what we're going to type in is red, for example, but I prefer hot pink. So we're going to go with that, Alex. There we go. And as soon as we save that and check out our webpage, boom. Nice. Now let's check out hexadecimal codes of color values. And we'll change the page background to orange. So if you don't already know, hex color codes start with the pound sign or the hashtag sign and are followed by 6 letters and or numbers. The first 2 letters and or numbers refer to red, the next 2 refer to green, and the last 2 refer to blue. The color values are defined in values between 00 and FF, where 00 is darkest and FF is lightest. So in our case, the specific hex color code we're going to use for orange is going to be DF8E00. And if we save that, boom, there we go. And also the last way to change the color is through RGB. And that works by increasing and decreasing the amount of red, green, and blue you want to output in a single color, ranging from the value 0 to 255. So to make the web page a lighter orange, we can type RGB and parentheses. Inside the parentheses, we'll call our 3 separate values. First, red, we're going to set to maximum, so 255. And then blue, we'll set to 188. And green, we'll set to 103. Save that, nice. Now, let's adjust our text a little bit more by adding an H1 element. So we'll first call our H1 tag, followed by more braces. And followed by, there we go. And then we're gonna increase the font size a little bit. So we'll type in font dash size, followed by another colon. And we're gonna need a measurement to describe what font size we want. So in this case, we'll use 50 px. And the px specifically stands for pixels. Nice. And then below that, we're gonna center our text by calling another attribute, and that attribute is called text align. And all we have to do is type in the word center, save our document, boom. And last thing we'll do with the H1 header is change the color to red. So right below our text align, we'll call the attribute color and simply type in the color red. There we go. And also below that, we're gonna also adjust our paragraph and increase the size of it a little bit more too. So we call our P tag first, followed by braces, and same step we did with the header tag, we'll call font size, and we'll increase the size to 25 pixels. Awesome. Now we can see the changes on our webpage, and there's even another way that we can add styles into our code and directly change the properties of each text element. And that's by directly adding on to our tag name. So for example, let's first delete our color red in the H1 tag and return the text back to normal. You can save the document for us real quick, Alex. So we return the page. There we go. And then we can change our text back to red by adding it on to our H1 tag. So here we'll type H1 space style =, quotation marks. And inside the quotation marks, we're going to put in color : red, followed by a semicolon to end off that line. And now you'll see that our text is back to red. So since we've displayed how styles work within HTML, it's important to know that this is exactly how websites are not supposed to be made. If we were to continue to like this and keep coding, it ultimately end up extremely unorganized and make our code super bulky. So this is where CSS comes in. CSS gives us the ability to use styling in a much better way, where we can switch between style sheets as we please without having to change our HTML elements very much. So what we'll do first is create a new file in our root folder of where our HTML project is located. And we're going to call this file style.css, which will initialize the file as a CSS type. So now let's copy and paste over what we already programmed in our HTML file. Nice. We can also bring over the color red as well. And as you can see, this absolutely doesn't work. We are missing a very important detail, and that's called a link. So in our HTML file, to conjoin the functions of these separate programs, we got to make a new line within our head tag section and enter in a link. So what we'll type in is link, space rel equals quotation marks and then style sheet. And this just defines what kind of link this is. And then we're going to add on a second attribute, which is going to link to the actual style sheet. So we're going to call the function href, which stands for hyperreference. And we can set it equal to the file name we just called style.css. And end it off with a greater than sign. Nice. There we go. Also, another thing to note is that the link tag is actually an empty element, so we're not going to need a closing link tag. So now that we got our changes, the next question we have to address is, what if we use the same paragraph tag twice in our code, but wanted a different style for each of them? So let's copy and paste our original paragraph tag, and let's change the text to something like Happy Halloween. Nice. Now you'll see that the same exact styles apply to both texts, but hypothetically, let's say we wanted to change the second one's style. Then to do this, we'd insert what's called a divider tag, which is referenced as div. And what we're going to do is place this div tag around the second p tag. Nice. Now, if we go back to our CSS file, we can now reference div p below our paragraph tag. And what we'll do is we will bold our text this time by typing in another attribute called font-weight, followed by some value between 0 and 900, but in this case, we'll use 700. Awesome. Now, if we save that, we see that now both p tags are have different properties. Now, what's going to happen if we need to use way more than just 2 p tags? Well, in that case, reusing div over and over again, that's not going to be optimal. So this is where something like IDs and classes come in, which allow us to be able to target specific elements in our HTML5. So to demonstrate this, let's first remove div from our HTML code. And now, while in our HTML document, if we navigate to our second p tag, we're going to assign a class to it. And to do this, we're going to type in p space class equals, and then in quotation marks, we're going to call our class Halloween. And from here, we can go back to our style sheet, and we can create our class called dot Halloween, in which the dot tells the CSS program that this is a class we're referring to. Now, inside these braces, we'll type in font weight bold. So now you'll see that the p tag assigned to the Halloween class is bolded, meaning our code recognized our class and it all worked out. And to build onto this, it's important to know that we can actually assign multiple classes to one of our text elements. So if we made a class that increases the size of a text and another class that changes the text color to the color red, we can combine the two. So right after the word Halloween, inside our quotation marks, we can add a space and then create a new class name. So we'll call this example red class. Now, if we go back to our CSS code, we can make our red class. But before we do it, it's poll time again. So let's see if you guys remember. At this time, give us your best guess on how you think our syntax will look like to declare our class. We'll wait a few moments for everyone to get their answers in. I'll give about 5 more seconds. 4, 3, 2, and 1. All right. So awesome job. Most of you guys were able to get it. So Alex, let's now declare the right class with a period first, and then our class name. And we'll change the color to red. Now you can see our changes on the screen. Awesome, awesome. So at this time, I'm gonna take a moment for any questions. If anybody wants me to slow down or has any input or any confusion at all.
And feel free to either pop it in the chat or unmute yourself and say it.
We'll give another 5 count. Anyone at all? All right. Looks like we're good so far. So let's hop into the next topic and let's try assigning a class to a div and let's see what happens. So we'll first place our div tags around both of the p tags. Then there we go. Then we'll add the class inside the div tag, just like how we did before. And this right here, assigning a class to a div, is what you would call a container, in which everything located inside the div tag is assigned the same attributes. So we will assign our div class the red class, which we made before. Save our work, and there we go. And it'll be redundant to add a second class to the other paragraph. So good job, Alex, for taking that out for us. Nice. So now let's move on to the next concept, which is called IDs. IDs are similar to classes in some ways, but the main difference between the two is that multiple text elements can be assigned to classes, but an ID is unique to only one text element that you assign to it on a single web page. So to implement IDs, you want to declare your ID right after you have declared your class. So to give the first p tag an ID, you want to type in ID equals, and then quotation marks, some ID name, which we'll call Halloween in this case. So this has almost the same syntax as declaring a class. Now, if we go back to our CSS code, we can assign our ID by typing below our Halloween class or below the next class by first typing in pound hashtag, which is the symbol that refers to each ID. And then we'll type in the name of our ID, which is Halloween, followed by braces. And inside the braces, we'll just change the font size to 30 pixels, 30px. Now you see that even though both our p tags are assigned the same class, the ID only changes the specific element. So these IDs are very useful for a lot of reasons. One of those reasons is that, let's say we wanted to create a link in our web page that scrolls down to a specific element for us. Well, then we need to reference this ID. So to demonstrate this, let's first create another p tag and then assign it the ID bottom. We can, in this case, we'll add another p tag below the Halloween. And in between that, we'll say, we can type in, this is the bottom of the web page. There we go. And then we can bring that ID bottom over to this. Awesome. Then we'll go back to our CSS code and call our ID hashtag bottom, followed by more braces. And we can move it to the bottom through another attribute called margin dash top. So the margin top attribute actually defines how much space you want between your text element and the text element right above it. So to implement this, we'll type in margin top, and we want to increase the space between for like 2,000 pixels. A super high number, which will just send our text all the way to the bottom out of sight, where you can see it. Nice. So then we'll introduce another attribute to be able to make a link that takes us to our, this is the bottom of the screen text. This attribute is similar to the link we used before to connect our HTML and CSS file. But this time we're going to reference our paragraph ID as a link to scroll down to. So in our HTML script under body, we're going to use what's called the A tag. The tag whose job is to create us a clickable link. So what we'll type is A space href inside the A tag, which is the hyperreference. And equals, and inside quotation marks, we're going to call our ID. And how we always call our IDs, we use the pound symbol, the hashtag, and we can put hashtag bottom. Nice. And then we can also include the text, click me to scroll down before closing our A tag. Which then the text we just entered will appear on the top of our scroll page and will become clickable text. Now, Alex can click on it for us right away. We're taking him straight to the bottom. Awesome. Now, before we continue, is everybody okay with that so far? Any confusion happening at all? Yeah, sure thing, Adam. Alex, can you show the CSS file for us real quick?
Perfect. And feel free to shout out any questions you have via the voice or via the chat.
So you guys recording this, right? Like we can access it later?
Yep, we're
Yep.
recording it. It'll be up on our YouTube channel.
Okay, awesome. Thank you.
All right, so I think it's safe to say we can move on now. So before we hop straight into our next attribute, let's come back to the PowerPoint for just a moment, and I can share my screen for us really quick. All right. So the next topic we're going to tackle are lists. Now, let's say in our website, we want to create a list of items, right? So this is going to be important to remember because in our future workshop, we'll definitely need to be able to create a list to be able to display something like our skills, experiences, or anything else of the matter on our portfolio. So the first thing to know is that in HTML, there are two different kinds of lists, unordered and ordered. The tag associated with each list is UL for unordered list and OL for ordered list. And to be frank, UL is the go-to list for designing websites, but we'll still explain the functioning of both. So within both these lists are what are called list items. And we use tags to declare each list item. We reference the item tags using LI and embed them inside our UL or OL elements. So Alex, once again, let's share your screen one more time and demonstrate how this works. So let's begin by creating an unordered list right below our Happy Halloween text. Using the UL tag. There we go. And we can also put our list item inside the UL tag. And we'll stay with the Halloween theme and type in a list of candy. So for our first bullet point, let's write down M&Ms. And by using a list element opening tag, the list element closing tag, you can see the result on the screen once we save it. Beautiful, with the bullet point. Now let's extend our list and make a few more bullets. So let's add in a few more candies. We'll add in Twix and Airheads. Nice. And then we can save our work and see our whole list of candy. Now, if we wanted to number this list of candy, an easy way to do it is simply switch out the UL tag and an ordered list tag. So let's do that real quick by replacing the U's with an O. Awesome. There we go. Now you should see the 1, 2, and 3. Now the last thing we should do now, so throw a little bit of pizzazz on our list, a little bit of CSS. So what we're going to do is increase the size of every list element by hopping into our style sheet. And once again, what we'll do is call our ordered list, followed by braces. And then we'll set our font size to 25 pixels. Save it, perfect. Now we know how to create a basic list. So before we continue on again, I hope that concept is sticking with y'all. Hope everyone's comfortable so far. And I do not see the chat exploding with questions, so we're good. All right. So now that we have a fundamental understanding of basic structures in HTML, another important thing I should mention is that we don't always have to begin programming a website from scratch. Instead of starting straight from scratch, you also have the power to build upon a free template, which we'll take a look at now. So there are many free templates you can download free from the web, and we are going to use a website called www.freecss.com, which I'll also link this in the chat as well. anyone is interested in checking out free templates. And once on this website, you'll be presented with many different templates to be able to style and choose from. And the one which we'll choose is called Blue Goon, which is the third one from on the list. Once you click on it, you'll be able to see a live view of the template to see if the template is to your liking. And if it is, you can just click download. And once it's downloaded, there's going to be a few steps we have to take to be able to see all the code on Visual Studio. So first, we're going to want to extract the compressed zip file into a normal file. And then from Visual Studio Code, we can open up this folder and view all the code for the template. Now, when opening any online template like this, it'll look daunting at first, very daunting. There's still a lot of attributes in which you're not familiar with yet, but if you look closely, you'll realize that the layout actually has a lot of familiar content and that you do know a lot of these attributes already. So it's going to be a lot, but we're going to tackle it down piece by piece. So to play around with the template and change a few things, let's first open it up with live server once again to take a look at what we downloaded. Nice. Now that we have it open, let's try to change that main header where it says Blue Goon to Google Dev Club. So what we'll do is look for the name of the text element we want to change. So one way to find the text element we're looking for is by clicking Inspect, where this will appear on the side of your screen. And on our web page, if we hover over the different elements of HTML that are presented, we can look for the one which we want to select. So let's look for where our Blue Goon text is located. By first or another way we can do it is, so since we already know that the Blue Goon is the main header of the file, we can also hop back into Visual Studio Code for a moment. And we can locate it in one of the first few tabs. So where it says header 4 inside our body tag, we can change that Blue Goon text to Google Dev Club. And once we save that and open up our file, you can see that making a simple change like that took no effort at all. Now let's try to change the background colors of this website. So what we'll do first is click on Inspect Element and try to find out which one of these elements become highlighted, the element we want. And since Alex has found it, while we hover over the page wrapper, right below the body tag, we see that this embodies the entire page. So what we're going to do is we're going to look for this ID attached to the whole page inside our CSS code. So if we open up Visual Studio Code once again, and we're going to need to first go into our CSS file. So there's going to be quite a few files to be able to look through. So now that we're going through, we see that there's CSS, a CSS folder, and there's a few options. So we're going to look for the CSS template that's associated with our HTML code. So if Alex, you can click on to plate, I believe this is the one that's affecting our website. And first thing you can see is our ID, which we just found, called page wrapper. And we can change this background to a different color. And this time, we'll change the color by using the color palette. So if we can type in or as Alex is showing, let's change the background color to something like orange. Nice. We'll save it. Go back to our website to see the changes. Nice. I like it. I like it. Now let's find another attribute that we can change. So since that blue is still sticking out like a sore thumb, let's fix that. So what we can do is let's click on inspect one more time. And let's figure out which ID or class is associated with this strip of blue. So as we go through, we know this is located in our navigation bar. And as Alex was able to find it, as he hovers over the divider tag that's assigned the ID menu and the class menu, we now know we have our first lead to find out where we can change our code. So if we hop back into our CSS folder, we can type in Control F, and we'll type in menu. Now we can click enter a few times to look for our menu tag or class. And I believe we have, there we go. We found our menu class, and there's a background color associated to it with the color blue. So let's fix that up real quick. And we'll change this to a darker orange, almost red. Now, if we save that and look at our website one more time, you'll see that the changes were updated. Now, you guys are also capable of changing any other attribute which you know of, and you can also learn what new attributes do as you explore a brand new template. But now that we've covered all of this HTML and CSS, we're still missing one big piece of the puzzle, and that's JavaScript. So Alex, thanks for sharing your screen for us. We're going to hop right back into the presentation. So what is JavaScript? So let me give a quick disclaimer. Today, we will not be demonstrating JavaScript in our website, but we will cover its important role in web development and also talk about what makes JavaScript so unique. First thing to clear up is that JavaScript has no relation to the other programming language called Java. The naming convention between these two languages was pure coincidence. But to be honest with y'all, I would not be surprised if Microsoft did this naming, because if you've seen the difference between Visual Studio and Visual Studio Code, you know what the problem is. But besides the point, JavaScript is unique because it's capable of running directly on a web browser, as well as providing extra interactivity. So in this GIF, you'll see that this website that asks the user to answer a question is capable of taking a user's text input and changing colors, as well as providing a button for the user after getting the answer correct. That is all JavaScript for you. And another unique feature of JavaScript is that it can also provide real-time content updates on a web page. Looking at this GIF, you'll see that on this sample website, there's a Google World Map with a lot of pinpoints all over. And each pin, the updates for whenever someone's new blog is posted in a certain region. And it was JavaScript that actually went out to the server and got this data, which means that the web page does not have to be refreshed for when an update in the data occurs. And to add on to real-time content updates, JavaScript also offers web developers the ability to add animations to a website. Now, let's take a look at this really cool site. You see how it displays the solar system and also some of the code that it took to make it? Well, that's JavaScript specifically that's causing those planets to orbit around the sun, as well as adjusting the planets in size, which displays the real scale size between the sun and the earth. Cool, right? Just take a look at how tiny we are. But anyway, last concept I want to tackle with y'all are JavaScript frameworks. So let's hop into it. There's a lot of frameworks out there. All right. Most likely you've already heard about them, but you just don't know what they are yet. Well, if you've ever heard of React, Angular, Vue, Backbone, Svelte, yada, 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 then you should know that all these are just JavaScript frameworks. So why are there so many of them? It's because the JavaScript language doesn't have an official framework. So developers were given the freedom to create their own, which a lot of them took up on that offer. But let's backtrack a little bit. What even is a JavaScript framework? To put it simply, a framework is a library of pre-written JavaScript code that allows for easier development of JavaScript applications. It helps us cut corners and avoid having to specify and assign every single element we work with, which can save us as developers a lot of time. And as you can see, the difference between what vanilla JavaScript looks like and a framework. Now, currently, the main frameworks worthy of remembering are React, which was created by Facebook, Angular, which was created by Google, and Vue.js, which was made by an independent developer. Now, if you're brand new to all this, this isn't something to worry about just yet, but it is something to keep in mind as you continue going deeper into the rabbit hole of web development. And with that, ladies and gents, I want to thank everybody for coming out today and being part of this workshop. I hope to see you all at our second workshop next week, where our GOAT, Ryan, tech lead of all tech leads, and Max will be hosting. And unless you have any last lingering questions or need help with getting any resources or links, us tech leads will stay here for a little bit longer. But other than that, for y'all dipping right now, bye-bye.
And as we mentioned, the recording will be up on YouTube, so feel free to watch it there and follow through, see if you missed anything, and go through it one more time.
Of course, go ahead. Take care, y'all. Y'all have a good night.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you, thank you.
We can reserve for the next workshop already, or no? Like reserve a spot?
Yeah, you can absolutely, you can RSVP already. I'll send the link for that in the chat right now. We actually have a general body meeting on this Friday, but our next event in this series is on October 18th, so next Monday. And I'll send the link to that page within the chat right now, once I get to that page.
Are you guys all in UCF? Like,
Yep.
Okay.
So there are Google Developer Student Clubs internationally. So there are chapters around the world, which is pretty cool.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. Okay, cool. Thank you guys.
Thank you for joining.
Of course. Take care.
I like the poster in the back too, Kyrie.
Hey, you know what's up. You know what's up.
That was a nice play.
Of course, yeah, legendary playoff.
The block in the shot.